Welcome to the new unit impressions for November 2018. New heroes, Fire and Ice. Literally just Fire and Ice. I'm not too surprised by the debut of this banner because I think they're just trying to release all the units that we haven't had from Book 2 yet before they unveil whatever comes in Book 3. So it kind of makes sense for me. That's what I'll say before we look into the new skills and my opinions on the units themselves and what sort of implications they may have on the meta. So let's do it. Fresh snowfall. You say boing boing boing? I heard boing, but whatever. Okay. So Ylgr, cool, I guess. I don't know. It's just kind of weird when we have characters with like 3 lines in the whole story show up as a character. But hey, whatever. I don't feel it when I see characters. My personal opinion on this is I like characters that have some character development and some story associated with them. This just seems like Fjorm with even less character development. At least with Fjorm we get some coughing. So she's the second blue dagger infantry unit we have, the other one being Ryoma, and I think Ryoma was actually pretty good as a unit. So at least this one's in the permanent pool and maybe offers something differently. I'm going to assume just speed because that tends to make sense. Alright, so new stuff. The old stuff first is Glimmer, Speed Tactic, Chill Speed. Speed Tactic finally being in the permanent pool is cool. Let's talk about Sorcery Blade first. This is a completely new skill. It should be inheritable to anybody. I do not assume that it is only... We don't know whether it's ranged only because she's a ranged unit or it can be inherited to melee units. But one problem with this skill is 2 things. First of all, it has a requirement that might not be too easy to use, which is making sure you use it while you're adjacent to another magic ally. So not only do you have to be adjacent to something like a bond skill, but you also need to make sure that the ally is magic. And magic means tome users. So you need to combo this with someone who's a tome user, which I guess could work, but the thing is, it would work better on enemy phase rather than player phase, and since it takes the A skill, you kind of lock yourself from using a lot of good A skills like close counter, for instance. If you want to use like a close counter and use adaptive damage, that kind of stinks. So I don't really like that it takes up an A skill from otherwise characters who kind of need it. Like range units don't have a lot of BST to just be throwing around their A skills. So yeah, I don't really like that aspect of it. Alright, so the new weapon she has, it is going to be a preference weapon to her. It's called Ylgr. Grand Speed. This is why I thought when I saw her initially that she's going to be speedy, which probably make her slightly different from Ryoma. Ryoma was already pretty fast, but she's probably going to be like even faster. Not to mention Ryoma's running like Dancer BST, ranged Dancer BST, like 140, so she's not restricted to that sort of thing and will likely have some pretty good overall stats. I mean, most units that are new nowadays do. As for the weapon itself, it's a speed check, so another reason that you want to be speedy. She's got chill speed, so it probably won't even be that difficult to overcome, but essentially as long as you have more speed, you get more speed and attack as well. This pretty much guarantees that she's going to be doubling everything that isn't running like Worry Fighter or Dagger Breaker. So a unit that has a guaranteed follow-up because she just gives herself more speed as long as she has more speed. Essentially, if you have 1 more speed, you get an extra 4 and you'll guarantee a double. Pretty cool. Do I think that it's going to really bring anything new? Just it kind of depends what her attack stat is. If her attack stat ends up being pretty good, then she's going to get some good value, I think, out of the dagger and whatnot. It really depends totally on that because just running like speed is not always useful. Speed has diminishing returns, meaning like you can't stack too much of it. If you have a unit with like 50 speed and you're fighting a unit with 20 speed, you essentially have wasted like 30 stat points, right? So that kind of stinks. There are some characters that do take advantage of extra speed, those pretty much being like Carla and Giga Nino, Flying Nino, and that's pretty much it. But even those have hard caps. So the unit itself is going to be, I feel like it's going to be pretty underwhelming compared to other options we already have, and we'll look at the unit analysis for that tomorrow when we do get the stats released.
I'm having so much fun.
Nice.
I am Surtr, King of Moosemen. Bow before me.
Green Axe armor. We already have like thousands of these, or just like green armor in general is so oversaturated. So you probably already have somebody that's doing this role already. So I don't really, on first impression, think Surtr's gonna bring anything new. At least with Ylgr is like a blue dagger, you know, that could be kind of new compared to like Ryoma. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't really think of it so much. Anyways, like if you have Hector, if you have Brave Ephraim, if you have Grima, if you have Sheena even as an F2P option, they're all probably going to do a similar role to whatever Surtr does. But let's look at his skills first. Okay, so he comes with a preference skill. It's called Surtr's Menace, and it's pretty good, actually. What I really like about Surtr's Menace is essentially if you're within 2 spaces of him at the start of your turn, you're going to give yourself a bunch of buffs. The buffs probably are not really relevant if you're considering like the arena meta. It could be decent if you are maybe using him as a bonus unit or in ether raids, essentially if units are all clustered near him. But what is cool is definitely that you debuff units around him, and that's the effect that's useful, especially for arena and other things. It's going to be hard to stay within range of him because it synergizes really well with his weapon, which is Sinmara. And we know from experience of fighting against this in the story that it is non-lethal damage. So he becomes actually like the best support green armor unit in the game. Like you pretty much, if you wanted to make a green armor support, you'd be using something like Haigoida before this. So the fact that he's got that rolling for him is pretty cool. You got your synergy there between non-lethal damage, which probably wouldn't be too hard to position for. Keep in mind that Surtr's Menace does take the slot that you would normally use for Armor March, so committing to Surtr almost requires you to use either boots or another armor beside him to make sure he's in the right position to activate these sort of skills. I don't see why he would have trainee BST. I'm just going to assume that he has 175 BST. We'll find out tomorrow. I don't think they're going to be changing that formula just yet. He comes with Worry Fighter, so he pretty much does seem like he's supposed to support out of the box. And finally, he comes with Steady Stance 4, which is a completely new skill. So I understand like the extra defense there up to +8, but I do not understand why it has the guard effect included onto that skill and why it doesn't have an HP threshold, because that just straight up makes it ridiculous. Like, you don't even have to use guard or special fighter in the beast slot. You could be using bold guard, not guard, but like bold vengeful fighter. It kind of opens up so many different situations where he's going to be in charge rather than the units fighting against him, or that they have to use some sort of special acceleration to fight properly against him. Heavy blades, flashing blades, bold fighters, vengeful fighters, all that kind of stuff. So it seems like a pretty oppressive skill. I don't like that they tacked on the guard effect to it. It just makes them really annoying to deal with. Anyways, final note on this is I feel like this is kind of a bait for possibly whatever 3.0 brings ahead of us, and it's really shown that sort of pattern with things like Deathblow 4, Double Fortress Defense Res, and now Steady Stance 4, these being like 300 SP skills and being evolutions of current skills in the game. Whether they were good or not is really subject to debate. Steady Stance 4 will be really useful on certain flyers and horses because they couldn't use breath before, but now they can use this enhanced defense and essentially just wall everything without requiring guard in the B. A good example of this is like putting Ruruka with Steady Stance 4, Renewal in the B, and like Quick Repose Seal, and you have like the perfect tank because you have guard on the A slot, healing on the B, and you have like Quick Repose in the Seal, so you almost are always healthy within range to use your skills. And yeah, it's going to be pretty ridiculous because it also enhances the damage of something like Ignis. Now, there's plenty of other characters that could do that as well. Just think of your frontline wallers, but I have to give credit to the flyers and the armor units. One final thing I didn't mention earlier is Sorcery Blade and who you would really want to utilize that on. I recommend using that probably, like at first I don't think it's good to sacrifice an A skill, but if you were to use it on somebody, it would likely be on units who already have low attack, similar to how Felicia works, and units that have either really good defense or really high res. So they have like lopsided stat spreads with cooldown reduction, and that gives you adaptive damage and lets you nuke with high stats, whether that's defense or res. I think that's probably its best case scenario usage. That way you're not really messing around with stats too much.
Scatter like ash.
69. Paralog Story. Wasn't he already dead? So he just came back to show up in a paralog? Cool. Really important that I want to mention here, and I'll talk about this in the should you pull an analysis tomorrow. And this is the first time, I think, literally in the first time of history of this game, that we've had a 2-unit banner. And if you know how basically these banners work, the less amount of focus units you have, the easier it is to get a focus unit. So if you compare like 4-unit focus banners to, let's say, a legendary banner where there's 12 focus units, unless you end up pulling full circle, it's really hard to snipe for particular units because the focus unit that you desire is competing with all the other focus units, and therefore it's hard for that particular unit to show up because they all have like an equal chance of showing up. Now, when there's only 2 focus units, it only checks for those particular focus units, and it makes it really easy to snipe for those particular units. This means that if you are sniping for Surtr, or even Ylgr in this case, but specifically Surtr because he's green and the green pool being least saturated, it means that this is the first time in the history of Fe where you likely don't even have to spend on average, and I don't know yet until I've checked the math tomorrow, but you probably don't even have to spend like 60 to 80 orbs on average, is somewhere within that range, to even get a single copy of Surtr, which means he is the least expensive unit to plus 10 if you've been saving maybe even like 2 months of orbs, which could give you a huge advantage in like arena scoring or even a bonus unit of this caliber. And if his BSD ends up just being like 175, you give yourself even a better advantage than people using dual skills. That's just specifically to Surtr, and even Ylgr kind of has this advantage due to being on a 2-person banner like this. And I don't know if they'll ever do this again. So if these units interest you at all, and if they interest you at all and you sort of kind of play for arena maybe, then you may want to consider it if you've saved enough orbs, because even if the units do, like, they're not that great, even if they aren't, like the value you get for sniping on a 2-person banner is astounding. So look forward to that tomorrow when I cover it, but definitely this is it's revolutionary in terms of heroes, and I don't know if they'll ever do it again. For all we know, it could be baited into something similar happening like this in 3.0, but you know, you don't have to necessarily pull on day 1, so maybe just wait until near the end of this banner to see what sort of things come and make your decision then, especially since you can just save orbs. And it overlaps with legendary banners, so you should at least wait for that. Like, there's not going to be a real urgency to pull for these units, I would say, but there's definitely that mathematical thing to consider. So that pretty much covers my impressions. Thanks for watching. Give the video a thumbs up if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for the analysis and more detailed mathematics as to why this banner is indeed special, not particularly the units, but definitely for other reasons. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.